good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I don't know where you are. You tell me. Welcome back to this thing that I do every week. It's the Kickoff Clash. The Overwatch League had a really ridiculous week last week. A couple less matches, apart from if you're an APAC, in which case you had to play like 4 matches in a week. It was absolutely ridiculous. And we've got stuff to talk about and we've got pick'ems to make. So let's get right on in with this. Don't forget, guys, if you actually enjoyed this kind of stuff, if you like the video, I don't know, give it a like or something. It makes things happen. But you don't have to subscribe. I lied, you should. Let's go. Let's just go. I want to get into this quickly today. My brain is a complete frazzle from what it has been in recent months as a result of being overtired from work and whatnot, but we're moving. Anyway, first topic today. This is actually fresh off the press from last night. We need to talk about Vancouver Titans. Vancouver Titans obviously take a 6-0 loss this week. They lost all 6 of their matches over the course of the Kickoff Clash. They obviously didn't qualify for the tournament. They're in a bit of shambles at the moment. They signed Mirror off the cusp, just quite randomly. Their roster's had a lot of in and outs. They don't have a main tank to cover for false when they want to play these Winston compositions. I think it's fair to say that Vancouver are in a bit of trouble. Now that was a little bit added to an extent this week because they had a couple of departures. I'm assuming those departures were pre-planned, but this is what happened. They lost Psycho. Psycho has now gone, which in my opinion is a little bit sad because in the first week, at the very least, I thought that Psycho looked relatively competent. I think that Psycho looked okay on all the flex DPS that he was picking up. So that's disappointing for someone that was called up from contenders and now has just been dropped off the face of the earth. And I think this begs the question of the narrative of the league really does need to step up protection for players because players are getting picked up and dropped all over the place at the moment. There is no job security in what they have on different teams, and it is relatively disappointing for those players. So let's hope that Psycho gets found quickly for another team. We'll see how he does, but I thought he played relatively well. Something I'm less disappointed about was that the Titans have now parted ways with their main coach and their assistant coach. They've parted ways with Flubby and Pew, as announced on Twitter last night. So I'm going to be honest, since Flubby and Pew came in, I have not been impressed with their coaching whatsoever. Obviously, look, I respect to Overwatch League coaches. They obviously held themselves in good regard, you know. There was never any drama about these two. They just got their heads down and got on with it. But unfortunately, they never were able to deliver any success to this team post the Runaway breakup. So it actually, if I'm a Vancouver fan, I think this is a sign of good things because the team was very stagnant under their direction. I thought that they were very much a team that would look at what's happening in scrims, look at what's happening in the meta at this current point in time from other teams, and they would just try and mirror it and play it. You never really saw Vancouver try and go out with their own thing, and even if they wanted to, they never have, for the last few years at the very least, had the players to be able to carry that out to some degree of success. So, again, it's disappointing in a sense for Vancouver fans. I hope that Flubby and Pew, obviously, you know, I wish them the best in their own endeavors, but I think this is a sign of good things to come. And if rumors are to be believed, then the new head coach coming in for you is a bit of a Chad. I should know because he used to coach Gladiators. So the rumors at the moment from Halo of Thoughts is that DIYA is going to be coming in as head coach for the Vancouver Titans. I've seen people throwing other different names out there. Get Amazed was another one that's been thrown out there. Though Halo's never usually too wrong off the mark when it comes to these kind of things. So that's really interesting. I think either of those coaches are going to bring a much better style, much more creative strategies, you know, a better practice to the team. And with really good young talent on that team, like Shockwave, like Aspire, Massa as as a centerpiece in terms of your support line. Again, look, everybody knows that if you go back and have a look at my team previews, I was very high on Vancouver. Unfortunately, I was dead wrong. But this could be a sign of good things to come. I genuinely do believe that under DPay's guidance, I think that they could genuinely be more competitive in that lower end of the table. You know, Boston, New York, London, Paris especially, you know, you'd all be quaking in your boots if DPay's down that end of the table, in my personal opinion. So yeah, good for DPay if he does go in, if that gets confirmed. Excellent. That's really good for the chap. He's very talented in my personal opinion. My personal biased opinion, as you can see from the purple behind me. And And yeah, good stuff. Good stuff, Vancouver. I think these are good changes, bar Psycho's departure. Moving on to some more teams in a little bit of drama at this current point in time. I think we should talk about the Atlanta REIN. Atlanta have been a little bit of an interesting topic over this last week, and I think that Atlanta have also been a pretty controversial team in the history of their conception within the league. They've always been known as sort of like, I guess you could call them trollers. They have been known for trolling. I mean, the infamous "It's Not Coming Home" from Atlanta onto London last year was nasty, man. These guys are always, just showing themselves up in the Overwatch chat. In games, you see it all the time. But Atlanta haven't had a very good start to their season. I think it's fair to say. They pulled out a couple of wins. They then got an absolutely nasty 3-0 by the Justice. They 3-0 the Titans in response. And this week, they took 2 back-to-back losses. 1 3-2 loss to the London Spitfire. And 1 3-0 drubbing by the Los Angeles Gladiators. Now, I'll talk about Gladiators in a second. I want to focus on the Spitfire narrative because... First of all, I have to take to Twitter here very, very briefly, but I want to hone in on something that Gator said. Gator, main tank for the Atlanta REIN, basically turned up and said, "Hey, do you want to play the honorable REIN Rush in a mirror match?" Hardy responds with yes, and then they get drubbed by it. Honestly, London really, really making that REIN Rush work for them, like very, very well. And yeah, that must be a tough loss to take if you're Atlanta, because let's be real here, okay? I think that Atlanta have a very talented team, with Nero and Kai and Venom on that roster. That DPS line should be popping off. OG and Ultraviolet, at least in their first week, were absolutely phenomenal, and unfortunately, they just haven't had the same effect. But I think Atlanta are a little bit lost at the moment. I think that they're struggling to find a niche that works for them. Obviously, Doomfist has fallen out of the meta since the first week, and they were looking really competent on those compositions. But since people have been watching VODs, and they've been playing through the next few weeks, they've been working out how to counteract that composition. It's clear that they haven't been using REIN Rush, as Gator also stated. They haven't been scrimming with REIN Rush at all for weeks now. So what can you do? Their Winston composition's obviously not so good. Like, Gator is not historically a good Winston. Not in comparison to other Winstons in the league. I mean, especially not Western Winstons either. Like, Western Winstons usually don't do as good as your Korean Winstons. But REIN is out there breaking that deadlock and showing people up, to be perfectly honest. So it's interesting. And they've been trying to run these Zarya comps as well to middling success. So I think it's fair to say that Atlanta are having a really difficult time finding their niche at the moment and finding something that works for them, which is very, very interesting. But I also wanted to hone in on something that Brad said as well. Brad is the head coach of the Atlanta REIN. All of this drama has been surrounding Atlanta, honestly, at the moment. It's been crazy, okay? But Brad basically tweeted out something about, the league running with a brain-dead blacklist narrative that never happened. Quote, he says, "I guess if we win tomorrow," this was obviously before the Gladiators game, "we'll get up on stream and talk about how Glad's blacklisted us from the first few weeks." Look, this is all to do with scrims, right? If you don't know what blacklisting is, it's basically the idea that some teams aren't going to play other teams in scrims. They don't, they choose not to. So I guess there's this vicious circle of like Atlanta have been blacklisted by certain teams from scrims or something like that. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. The thing with Atlanta is that Atlanta have been dishing out for years in terms of, sort of like banter between other teams, okay, and adding a bit of spice to your games. And that's what everyone loves about Atlanta, okay? They were never afraid to open their mouth and say something, okay? But in my personal opinion, and it's something that Gator said actually on the Kickoff Clash selection show, it really echoes in my mind here, okay? It's clear at this current point that Atlanta are really struggling to take a lot of the criticism that's coming their way from something that has culturally, at the very least, been like a centerpiece of their team. Again, I'm going to point to Gator, basically, obviously turns around on Twitter and says, "Mirror us in the honorable REIN Rush." And then on the Kickoff Clash selection show, he just turns around and says, "Yeah, we'd be doing better if we weren't getting cheesed." Excuse me, sir, but I believe you're the person that turned around and asked to play REIN Rush. Sure, mate, no worries, that's fine. But it's okay, you're getting cheesed. Look, here's the thing, right? I'm not a person for online hate. You shouldn't be dishing out online hate to all these players, But the fact of the matter is that from where I'm standing, the Atlanta REIN staff, coaching staff, and otherwise, you got to learn to take what you dish out, fam. Simple as that. Okay, and at the end of the day, Brad, you can direct the narrative. Okay, you don't have to sit there and let the league run with it. Okay, you are able to have a say in what the narrative is and direct it through your own social media staff. Okay, and through what your players are saying at the end of their post-match interviews. It's honestly very easy. It is actually really easy to change that narrative. I mean, look at Vancouver Titans last year. Vancouver Titans last year were able to change their narrative, okay? Their narrative, instead of being like an absolute catastrophe of a season, became this really optimistic story of let these guys get a map 5, let these guys get a win so that they can get the breadsticks, okay? Breadsticks was an absolutely phenomenal marketing tool, but it was also a good narrative that made you root for the team. You know what I'm saying? Shanghai Dragons are another one, you know, and so are the LA Valiant, I guess, at this point. You know, LA Valiant bring back DIYA. We'll actually talk about that as a separate topic now. Why the hell not? LA Valiant bring back DIYA. DIYA used to be on the Shanghai Dragons, for those of you that don't know, in the team that went 40-0 in Season 1, and he left the team without having ever won a game. Or he wasn't on the, I don't think he was on the roster when they won their first game in Season 2. Anyway, to cut a long story short, LA Valiant got a win this week over an APAC. They go and beat Chengdu. That was massive. That's really, really big. Ending, I think, what was a 23-24 match loss streak, and a really, really, really monumental moment for DIYA. DIYA finally getting his first win in Overwatch, like, deserved. Honestly, it's been a long time coming because DIYA is an absolute tank. DIYA is absolutely incredible at the game and deserved to win more than a lot of other players. So, congratulations, DIYA. Very much deserved. But, you know, pinballing this back to the Atlanta REIN right now. Okay, LA Valiant were a team that had a horrible narrative, okay? You know, the organization, like, ripped a load of players out, you know, like, weeks before the season started and uplifted the entire org to China. And now look at them, you know, this is a redemption story, especially for the players on this team, okay? And for the success of the team, like, it's a redemption story. And you can tell that they're trying to direct that narrative, and the players like DIYA are a part of that. If Atlanta were to lean into that, and if you're an Atlanta fan, if you have other ideas in your head, that's absolutely fine. Or if you think I'm getting the wrong idea of it as well, I completely understand. But from where I'm sitting, I believe that you can direct the narrative. I believe that you can actually change what's being said about you. And most importantly, man, you guys are the ones that have this culture, and you guys are the people that have been perpetuating the idea of trash talk, you know, and banter with other teams. You got to learn to take it. You simply got to learn to take it when you're not having a good one, and I'm sure what Atlanta will do is they will actually work hard to try and rectify their problems and perform better in the server. That's the important bit, to be perfectly honest. I don't think it's all over for Atlanta though at all, not by any stretch of the imagination. If we're talking about, you know, the crazy potential of the team, then it's, you know, it's right up there. Look, they have qualified for the kickoff clash, and arguably they probably have one of the easiest matches. I say easy. They have definitely got a slightly easier opponent, you know, especially from the ones that could have been picked. I mean, they could have gone up against Glads again. They could have gone up against Dallas or Shock. Instead, they've got Mayhem, which obviously they beat Mayhem at the start of the season. So, if you're an Atlanta fan, I wouldn't worry about it. You know, it's obviously been a little bit of a rough one so far, but we'll see how we go. Pivoting from Atlanta, though, I do think we have to talk about the REIN rush that was utilized, and we need to talk about where that slips into the meta, and this will cross over with my Gladiators topic a little bit. So let's talk about REIN rush, let's talk about Gladiators, okay? So Atlanta get beaten 3-2, obviously, by London, who are using a majority of REIN rush, okay? Gladiators come in, they run REIN rush near enough on 3 whole maps. No, they don't. They run it on 2, and on Circuit Royale, they run this absolutely very impressive double flex support, double sniper poke comp, which absolutely demolished Atlanta. But look, that's neither here nor there. It's the rush that I want to focus on because it was extremely effective against Atlanta. In particular, you know, against Zarya teams that maybe aren't as competent, it really did shut down any of the value that they were able to get from TPing a Reaper into the back. And it was like Padapan and Rhino were so well... they were so in sync in terms of using a wall, isolating Hawk, getting these kills onto him, and just dismantling the team from there. It was really difficult for Atlanta to actually be able to operate. You know, they played it slow. You know, they used high ground. They went and took all this high ground, just forcing them off it. And they would really grind these fights out quite slowly, especially on King's Row at the very least. And it made it so difficult for Atlanta to do anything. I mean, and in push, what can you do when there's a REIN just swinging on the bot? Okay, it's you got to pull that team apart, you know, and try and split them up before you can actually dismantle them, which is something that the Gladiators were able to do to London this week as well in their 3-1 victory. So I guess the question is there a place for Rein Rush in this meta? My answer is yes. I think that it's an easier comp to execute, and I do believe that it's a nice way to try and make it so that Doomfist comps, to an extent anyway, struggle a little bit. I think it's a nice way to make Zarya teams, you know, be a little bit more fearful, because in a weird way, at least in my personal opinion, I think that the Zarya comps are actually a kind of a pseudo form of rush, okay? You're still getting your Zarya and Reaper in there. Your Reaper's basically another tank when he's bubbled and going in, okay? And that's how you're creating space, okay? You're getting right up close and personal using a Reaper with the bubble, which is in a way a pseudo form of rush. So that's what I think about it, and I just think that it's going to be an interesting alternative, especially since, you know, London were the only ones that were using it for the longest time, with a couple of little hints of it being used by other teams. And then Gladiators come out there and they really absolutely show up with it. So interesting. And my short word on Gladiators this week is good. Back to business. Good stuff. Very convincing. London actually gave some very shaky moments to Glads. That was not an easy game to watch, in my personal opinion, because if London looked pretty good. London do look pretty good. Chatty is absolutely insane. But no, they squeezed the win out of London. A nice 3-1, and they absolutely, as I say, they smash Atlanta. So good stuff for my boys. Good stuff for my boys. Let's pivot away from this part. I've already spoken about DIYA and APAC, but I think the other topic I would like to talk about in APAC is simply Fusion. Fusion, what the fuck happened? Fusion dropped the spaghetti so hard this week. It was actually kind of shocking. You know, like, Fusion did manage to grind out a couple of wins, I think, this week. I can't even remember who they were against, man. They did qualify for the kickoff clash. But they had a rough week of it. I mean, they got 3-0'd by Seoul. They got 3-1'd by Chengdu. I've not been high on Chengdu, as I said last week. They got a 3-1 win over Valiant, and then they took a 3-2 loss to Spark, man. Like, Fusion had a poo week. It was really not very good from this team. It's a shame because, as I said last week, I thought they had a really, really good read on everything. And I thought they really understood how to take their team fights, okay? The limitations of their cooldowns, you know, when to use their ultimates, when to get aggressive, their positioning, what kind of high ground that they're trying to take. And this week, it just felt not there. Like, a lot of their maps came from, you know, big pop-off moments from people like Zest, again, getting massive blade value. People like Carpe. I thought Carpe was fine when he was coming in on control and push, honestly. I think he's been good. That's just the way it is. Yeah, a shame. I think not FD God, sorry. I think Aim God was struggling a little bit this week, though. Personally, Aim God was struggling to stay alive more than he was last week. So that's definitely something. So yeah, RIP Fusion, you dropped the spaghetti hard. If we stay in APAC though for a little bit, let's talk about some of the other teams that did well. Spark, a 5-1, absolutely insane. Spark are subverting my expectations. They're actually looking very well coached. So well done, Changoon. Or is it Baijan? I can't remember. I think it's Changoon. So they're looking relatively well coached, and they're actually playing very, very well at the moment. Good stuff from Spark. That's all I want to say on that, to be honest. I think the team that I want to hone in on mostly, though, is Seoul. Seoul looked really weird last week. Last week, they really weren't it. You know what I'm saying? They just weren't it. And then this week, they have been absolutely blistering. Yes, they took a 3-1 loss to Dragons. I didn't really see that one coming. But otherwise, you know, Profits really come out of the blocks like as he should. I think Fitz has looked absolutely fine. Smurf is looking very competent, even though Smurf is also playing all these off-tank roles as well. Like, he's being forced to play the Zarya a lot more as well. And yet, Seoul still look pretty good. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I guess in passing, we should also mention a little bit about Chengdu and Shanghai. Shanghai, you know, they went unbeaten this week. They got all of their wins, and some of them were dodgy. There was a 3-2 against Guangzhou that was a bit dodgy. There was a 3-2 against Valiant that was very dodgy as well. That Guangzhou game was a reverse sweep, by the way. They comfortably dispatched the Hunters, and then they got a win against Seoul 3-1 as well, which is pretty good. So Shanghai looking a little bit better. They seem to be getting better day by day, but I'm not personally convinced with Fate's ability on this Winston just yet. I think they look better on Winston comps than they have done on the Zarya comps so far. But I think when you're coming up against some higher quality Winston players, and you know, this is tournament profit we're talking about that's going to be coming in here, I think that you're going to be struggling. Not to say that Fate's Winston is bad. I'm not saying that. What I am saying though is that it's not it's simply not as good as it could be. So we'll see how we go. We'll simply see how we go. So that's APAC. The 4 teams that qualify though are Dragons, Seoul, Philadelphia, and Hangzhou. And by the way, Chengdu dropped the spaghetti. There's people dropping the spaghetti everywhere. I mean, Chengdu lost to Valiant, man. Chengdu looked fine against Fusion. You know, they lose to Spark, they lose to Dragons. I mean, yeah, okay, fair enough. I didn't necessarily see them losing to both of those teams, but they did. And then they really, really lost it against Valiant. Like, honestly, they were outplayed bad, and you can tell that the Chengdu camp needs work. So those are my those are the main topics I wanted to talk about, but I just want to get to this. We got to talk about this. It's time to talk about our pick'ems. I haven't even thought about this yet, and I'm terrified about it. And I'm going to start with the East, because I think that the East is going to be easier. By the way, folks, if you fancy jumping in and doing the leaderboards, because they're finally open, we've called the leaderboard Spaghetti Droppers. You can join the Spaghetti Droppers, because people are dropping the spaghetti. Easy, simple as. There's no password on it, just jump in. Just be nice to everyone that's in it. Yeah, let's start with this. Okay, obviously this literally looks like the Hawaii format, which is nice at the very least. You know, it's way easier to digest in the East. But these are basically rematches of everything that happened last week. Like, Hangzhou already played Fusion, Seoul already played Dragons, and I'm very tempted to go with the same results. The thing with Fusion is you never know which Fusion is going to turn up. And I think, you know, I genuinely think that they were pretty close, man. Like, that 3-2 against Spark was pretty close. So there's a part of me that wants to pick Fusion and go that way, because I've watched Hangzhou bottle it in these situations before. But right now, Hangzhou are really, like, showing me otherwise. Genuinely, they're showing me a little bit otherwise. I'm going to take a punt on this, though, and I'm going to go Fusion. I think there's an upset in here somewhere. I just don't know where, you know? I'm not sure. Now, there's also a massive part of me that thinks that Seoul could beat Shanghai, you know? That game was a lot more in Shanghai's alley, and Profit, again, playoffs Profit really does turn up. But look, I've watched Seoul in these situations. I saw them last year in the Countdown Cup, and they just didn't look like it, and this is near enough the same team. I think that Shanghai are just getting better and better and better and better. And I genuinely believe that if they keep running this Soldier Genji, with Horu just absolutely annihilating on this role, I think that they're going to be fine. Shanghai had the experience in these scenarios, and I think that they'll take it. I'm also going to give this a 3-2 though. I do think that Seoul are going to be better than they were. So we'll see how we go. And this sets us up for a couple of really interesting matches here. So we get the Spark versus the Dynasty. The Spark, who, you know, annihilated Seoul on the first weekend. And the Fusion versus the Dragons. And as we know, Fusion 3-0'd. I think this is a revenge story for Shanghai. I personally think that Fusion don't get past Shanghai at this point. I could see this being a 3-0 in the other direction. Honestly, if Shanghai don't get to the finals, I'll be a little bit surprised. Like, I could see them not, like, definitely, but I would be surprised. Like, it's not like last year where you think that Shanghai are just going to be there every single time. I think this year it's very much like they should be, but will they be, kind of thing. Let's look at elimination round 1. Like, this is genuinely a silly punt, to be perfectly honest. I mean, it's very close in APAC. I mean, me putting Fusion this far up after the week they've just had is probably very silly, but I'm going to go with it. Now, down here, I'm looking at Seoul and I'm looking at Spark, 2 teams that I know can bottle it on the stage. And I think I'm going to let Seoul go. Should I? Should I let Seoul go? Are we thinking that Spark are going to get to a final? Because whoever goes through here beats Fusion. That's the other thing. I think that whoever goes through here will beat Fusion because they'll have the momentum going up into the final. Oh. Oh. Oh, who do I send away? Oh, chat, who do I send away? Hmm. I don't know. I'm gonna send Soul away. And that's gonna come as a surprise. And here's the thing, I am already anticipating being so fucking wrong here. Genuinely, I could see myself being very, very wrong here. It won't be a 3-0. There's something about the way that Shanghai have been taking their fight, not Shanghai, that Hangzhou have been taking their fights recently that just really inspires some confidence in me. Like, Hangzhou don't make it easy for themselves, right? I don't think this is a team that's making it easy for themselves to do anything, but I just think that their read right now is really strong, and they also have the pop-off potential. I'm gonna let them have it. Sorry, Soul. This is a mistake. This is a mistake. Look, when we do a video after this, okay, I'm going to pull this back up and tell everyone I made a mistake when Soul win this fucking thing. But I don't think Soul's time is yet. I don't think it's yet. I don't think it's just yet. Oh, but is it though? Is it though? Look at them last week. Well, actually, they got a win against Fusion and they got a win against Guangzhou, you know? Guangzhou looked okay, and Fusion dropped the fucking spaghetti. Look at Spark last week. They just dispatched everyone that came up against them. And I know one of them was Chengdu and Guangzhou as well, but like, they looked fine. Sorry, where's East Week 3? As well, here, look, they were so close against Dragons. I mean, yeah, Valiant, yeah, I'm gonna go for it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna give it to Spark, and I also think I'm gonna give it Spark here. So we get another rematch against the Fusion, and I genuinely think that Spark are gonna do it again. I think Smart get another revenge match on Fusion to set up, you know, this week 1 banger against Shanghai, and there is such a large part of me that wants to give it to Spark to win it. Oh no, what have I become? I've become Reinforced. I can't give it to Spark, can I? This is the thing, right? Okay, this is the thing. So when it comes to the Preds, okay, I like to try and predict the upset because there's always a result that doesn't go the way you think. If you're looking at these results and you just predict it by like where it would typically go, it would typically, in my opinion, be Shanghai and Spark winning the first one, going through to that middle bracket. Okay, then Shanghai winning the second one and being in the final. Shanghai should be in the final based on the route they have, based on the strength of the team and the history of the results. Okay. Then you get Fusion Soul down there. Fusion go out first. Soul come on through. They play against Spark. And then you just have this discussion again, but up here. And then, based on the history of the results, Spark should go through anyway. Oh, good God. Nope, I can't do it. We're changing everything. We're changing everything. Goodbye, Fusion. I can't trust them. I cannot trust them. I don't trust them. I have changed my mind. Look, the Fusion are great, okay, when they're popping off. I just sat here and did my spiel about predicting the upset. I mean, I guess it could be here. I guess the upset could be there. That would be an upset. God, there's actually so much potential. There's so much potential for shit. Oh, boy. Do I think it's Fusion's time? I don't know. I don't know. All right, no. No, we're gonna give it we're gonna give it to Hangzhou. We're gonna give this to Shanghai. Or maybe I put the upset there. Nah, putting the Shanghai in the lower bracket is silly. Put it there. I'll give Fusion 1 against Seoul. But I think Seoul will dispatch them. I'm going to predict the upset here and say that Hangzhou get into the final and beat Shanghai, and they don't drop it this time. The spaghetti stays with them. There is a large part of me that wants to put Seoul through here again and with playoffs profit, but I just think that Shanghai will grind it out. And then this should be a gigabanger. Honestly. I want to give it to Shanghai. Part of me wants to be safe and give it to Shanghai because I believe that Shanghai know how to win. You know? What does concern me, though, is that Shanghai, I don't think, know how to win from the lower bracket. No, you know what? I'm going to go on a limb, and this is the way it's going to be. I'm going to give it to Hangzhou. I am going to be that Hangzhou guy, but I think the Seoul will get to the final. I think that... I don't think... There is a part of me that thinks that Shanghai are not used to winning from the lower bracket. Because Shanghai have been dominant from when they're on top most of the time. And when they lost to Guangzhou in the... God, was it the Summer Shadow or the June Joust? Whatever it was a couple of years back in the 2020 season. Like, there was a lot of... You know, that was unexpected. Yeah, there's a part of me that really does see Dragons going. Oh, no, Dragons are going to get to the final. What am I on? Oh, my God. Any of them could win it. I'm so sorry. I'm going back and forth so much. All right, last one. Shanghai are going to get to the final. There's no way that they don't. Seoul play against Spark. I've chosen to believe in Spark. We're going to let Spark get through to the final. The safe option is giving it to Dragons. I just said if Dragons do top bracket, they should be fine. But Spark will make it a closer affair. It's either 4-2 Shanghai or 4-3 to Spark. I'm locking in. All right, fuck it. We're gonna give it a Spark. We're gonna do it. I'm legit. I'm gonna give it a Spark. We'll come back to that. All right, let's go. Let's get into NA. Okay, right. Once again, I'm here to predict the upset. I'm here to put the big upset on here. There is a massive part of me that believes that the San Francisco Shock could lose to the Washington Justice. Now, I know that sounds crack. I know that sounds like an absolutely crack potential pick, but remember the playoffs. Remember the playoffs of 2021, folks. They got knocked down to the lower bracket, and then Shock made their way all the way through it. There is a massive part of me that thinks that Washington could just show up. Not this time. Get him out of there. All right. Atlanta versus Mayhem. So I think that Mayhem, over the course of the season, will have learned how to deal with Atlanta's Doomfist comp this time. That's what I think shook them, and I believe that Florida will have them this time. Atlanta have not inspired enough confidence in me to warrant them getting through, so I'm going to let Mayhem go through. Legit. I think that someone's been absolutely insane. But I think it'll be close to fair. You know what? I'll give it a 3-2 for Atlanta's benefit because look, Atlanta are an absolutely top team. They can be, so I'm going to give them the benefit. Now, this I think is the 3-0. Genuinely, I don't think Toronto are going to get shit from Dallas, especially not playing their hot Zarya comp. Like, Dallas will just absolutely slap them. But I am worried about this game. So, look, I think that Outlaws have showcased that they will struggle in places. Like, the Doomfist comp will be countered by Gladiators. That much is certain. I don't think their Zarya comp is anywhere near competent enough to deal with maybe a Rush match from Glads. And Houston don't have a main tank, so they can't play things like Rush and Winston, which Gladiators will already beat them at. So, all of my heart says I should pick Gladiators. But this is the Battle of Texas, nearly enough. Like, this is a homestand. This is Dallas. There will be Houston and Dallas fans through the roof. I genuinely believe in this idea of a home field advantage, and I think that Houston have some of it. So I'm going to give Gladiators the match, and I'm going to give Houston a map. That's the plan. Okay. Let's go. Let's do the losers bracket first. REIN and Justice. Like, okay, so Justice absolutely annihilated REIN last time. And honestly, there's a part of me that thinks that they could do it again. I know that Justice looked bad, but I am not confident in the way that Atlanta have been playing. I just don't like their compositional matches. I don't like their matchups. I think that if Justice run a good Winston comp again, and they run, Decay on the Tracer, and they actually play as a team, I think they'll win. I do think they'll win. It depends what Atlanta choose to run. But then Atlanta are pretty versatile. Maybe they start learning rush again and just make it really difficult for Washington to do anything. That's a difficult one, but I think it is actually going to be a banger. We'll go with that. Houston versus Toronto. Listen, I like Toronto, okay? What concerns me about Toronto, though, is that they've been running with the Zarya comp and they're not running the Muse Winston anymore, which they looked really good on, okay? I think all those looked okay since he's come in, but I would actually put Finale back in and try and run the Genji again. And the other thing is, as I've already said, there is quite... This is actually a matchup from week 1, I think, where Houston lost to Defiant 3-2. But I also think home field advantage is in here. So I'm actually going to give this to Houston. I think Toronto go here. I think Toronto gets some good maps in, but I think Toronto go. I think the Houston are going to get through that first bracket. It would surprise me if they didn't, honestly. Because the home field advantage is just nutty. Right, let's pull out some other folks then, shall we? This is very much a coin flip for me. Well, I'm going to say that the Atlanta REIN scrim rush this week. I'm going to say that they scrim some rush, that they start to widen their horizons because they know that it works, and I think it's going to help them beat the Washington Justice. But I think Justice will give everyone the scare that they can do a whole playoffs run again. That's what I think will happen, kind of thing. So we'll put them through there. We'll put Atlanta through. I don't think they'll get further, though. I think that's the end of the line for Atlanta. Shock will beat Mayhem. I think Shock will beat Mayhem convincingly. I'm dead certain on that. Gladiators versus the Fuel. Okay, so listen. This is the Dallas homestand. There is a massive part of me that thinks that Gladiators will run it back against both Fuel and Shock and win this tournament. I genuinely believe that Gladiators could run it back and win this tournament. Because if Gladiators go into the lower bracket, Gladiators suffer. And I know that happens. When they get into the lower bracket, they don't usually pick it up again. Genuinely, it terrifies me, that idea, but we'll see how it goes. But I just think the home field advantage for Fuel is too strong. So I'm going to give it a 3-2. We're going to give it to Fuel. I've said this before. I say it again. The narrative of having a home field advantage is absolutely deafening for some players. Gladiators already have Rocky Mental. I think this will be the kind of game where... Oh, we'll give it a 3-1, actually. Maybe a 3-2. Like, I don't think this will be a reverse sweep again. I think this will be Fuel coming out with a couple of matches and Gladiators win maybe one. And then Fuel win it comfortably. Yeah, I'm going to give it to Fuel. Gladiators are very good. But that'll hurt Gladiators' mental. And then they go down here. And that's really difficult. And I don't think that's good. I think they'll struggle if that happens. And I want them to win. Man, this is turning into a way longer video than I thought. Just based on fucking pick'ems. Holy shit. Okay. Alright, Let's go down here because I'm confident in Houston and Mayhem at the very least. Houston go further? Playoff Pelican? They did dispatch Florida once before. I think maybe this is where the inexperience of Florida's roster comes in a little bit. But then Arnamo is there. So is Exy. What are they going to run? Home field advantage, baby. I think we lose Florida. I'm going to go with this narrative as well of Gladiators. And I'm going to say the Gladiators do the REIN again. Setting up a rematch from Outlaws, which they comfortably take. Even though I say they struggle down there. But here's the narrative. The narrative is this. I think Houston had the home field advantage. I think they obviously take that first loss and it surprises people. Then they beat Defiant and then they have a little bit of wind under their sails. Then they go after Florida and they have a bit of wind under their sails and they go again. Gladiators this time will demolish them because Gladiators are just a better team. And I think that the home field advantage can only get you so far. REIN will absolutely try and REIN will look far, far better. You know, this week. I just do believe that they will look far better this week. But they'll lose to Gladiators and they'll get knocked out in the lower bracket. And Gladiators will get to within one bit of victory. Shock versus Dallas. Let's go back up here. Fuck me. Shock versus Dallas. Dallas. Home field advantage. Puts you very far in. Then we get to here. Shock versus Gladiators. Gladiators take the reverse against Shock, and then they win the tournament. I'm doing it. I'm fucking doing it. I shouldn't be predicting Glads to win this tournament. I do think it's between Glads, Fuel, and Shock, though. I genuinely do. I think maybe Shock's tournament inexperience bites him in the ass here. Maybe it does. I think that there's some narratives that have to play out here. I think that we've got the rerun of Atlanta Gladiators and Gladiators will get the better of them again. I think that we have the rerun of Shock Gladiators and Fuel Gladiators, and I think that Gladiators will have them this time and not choke. But that's only subject to if they get over the REIN here. If they don't get over the REIN here, or if Gladiators drop into the lower bracket and they lose that, well, obviously they're out. But if they win their first match in the lower bracket, I reckon they'll go on a run. Genuinely, I think they'll go on a run. I reckon they'll win the tournament. I'm a very, very big person for winning from the lower bracket, but that would be an absolute shift in Glad's mental if that happens. Wow, this is a really stupid bracket, isn't it? Oh well. Oh well, I'm really giving Houston a lot of benefit of the doubt here from that home advantage. I don't even think the home advantage will save Dallas. I just think they'll get overwhelmed. I think they'll choke. Yeah, we're gonna give it to Glads because I'm stupid. All right, back to the East. Just double check it. Am I really going to do two really unsafe options? Am I really going to say Spark and Gladiators? You're right. I should at least have one safe option. Let's give it to... Let's say Shanghai and Glads. Just to be... No, I'm a coward. I'm not going to be a coward. I'm going to give it to Spark and Gladiators. It's Spark and Gladiators. I'm a fucking fool. In. Oh, in. Oh, what have I done? What have I done? What have I done? What have I done? Oh. Oh, what have I done? Oh, I've created a monster. Ah, well. Ah, well. We move. We're going to move. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, and that was a very long one. It was me basically for half an hour choking over what the fuck my Preds were going to be, but I think it was entertaining at the very least. Thank you for following. Tell me what your own Preds are. Join the Spaghetti Droppers League. See what you want to do. I think it'll be fun. I think you'll have a really, really good time. Tell me what you thought about my absolutely stupid opinions, and yeah, that's it. We're done. Enjoy the kickoff clash. I might do some co-streaming for it illegally, but we move. And yeah, that's it. That's literally it. Enjoy your weekend, everyone. Enjoy the kickoff clash, and I will catch you in the next one. That's it. That's us done. Goodbye.